Thank you again, Dr. Douyon, for joining us today. The last time you shared, you are a psychologist and you are working with your company, Face Race, to really change workplace culture and help educate people about how racism and xenophobia is negatively impacting their employees and what they can do about it. Today, we want to hear just really about your study that you did when you were a psychologist. I understand that you really followed the stories of immigrants who came to the United States and how their immigration story impacted their sense of self, as well as their mental health. So just tell us a little bit more about what you did in your study.
So I interviewed about 10 individuals from various backgrounds, but all who identified as Black Caribbean immigrants. So they're from what we used to call the West Indies, right? So that part, the islands that surround the Caribbean Sea. And they were born in those countries and immigrated to the States at some point in time, but they spent at minimum half their life in their country of origin, and then came here for one reason or another. And they ranged in ages from early 20s until late 60s. So I really had a span of ages, as well as kind of what America was like at the time that they came to the United States, because they all came at different ages as well. And I was really looking to see how their experiences in the States impacted the ways in which they understand themselves right now. So when I talk about Black Caribbean immigrant identity, I'm really trying to understand where the intersection between racial identity and ethnic identity come together. So ethnicity as in being their culture of origin, so Haitian, Jamaican, Cape Verdean, et cetera, right? Well, not Cape Verdean, but Haitian, Jamaican, et cetera. And racial identification as in Black or white or something else, but specifically looking at people identified as Black. And I found that they could fall under one of four camps, really. So one could be a integrated identity. So they equally identify with their culture of origin, so their ethnicity, as well as their racial group. And this was important to think about because the idea of like racialization being the primary way we interact with the world doesn't exist in Black dominant countries. If everyone is Black, no one is thinking about their Blackness, really. There are other things that separate you. So for a lot of these immigrants, being identified and seen and classified as Black first and foremost was a unique experience. So I want to see who had more integrated identity. They were like, I am Black and I am Haitian, I am Black and I am Jamaican, et cetera. There was also those who may be assimilated, maybe as a result of their experiences or when they came to the States or what they wanted, they kind of dropped their ethnic identity. They became to identify as just Black, but with that, adopting the dominant ethnicity of Black people in America, which is African American. So they came to say, I am African American, right? They fully took on the racial identity and with it, the ethnic identity, the majority ethnic identity of the United States, of Black people in the United States. And the third one is separation, segregation, right? So separation as in I am choosing to separate myself, and segregation as in I have been forced to separate myself, right? I have been relegated to this other area. And that folks who land there are really only identifying with their ethnic identity. These are people that I met, they may have been in America for 30, 40 years, and they're like, I am Jamaican. I don't care if I haven't been to Jamaica in 30 years. I don't care if I only eat American foods. I am Jamaican and this is who I am, and you cannot insist upon a Black or African American identity upon me. All right. And then the last one would be a marginalization. This is as a result of many experiences of ostracization, othering, oppression, likely from both sides. So one's ethnic identity or country of origin and the States. They lost their entire sense of selves. They were like, am I from my country of origin? Am I Black? Am I American? There's a loss in general, right? Feeling like I am not accepted anywhere. I'm at the margins of all places. No one wants me and I am not accepted. And that's where we found the 4 places where individuals landed. The things that impacted their experiences was where they immigrated to the United States. A majority of my participants came in through South Florida, so the greater Miami area, or New York in particular. Some folks came in through Boston as well, which we know are major hubs for Black Caribbean immigrants in general. So that was not surprising. And so it was when they came in, the age that they came in, found that younger folks who came in directly into college had very different experiences than those who came in with families already, right? Those who came in and had to go to college right away felt a very significant experience of othering. It was, they get there and they're told, okay, you're Black. It means you're African American. It means you eat these foods. It means you like this music. It means these are your values. And they were like, I don't know any of these things, right? So they experienced this from white people, but then also from African Americans who had an expectation that they would have certain beliefs, fight alongside them along like race issues. So it's like, okay, something racist happened on campus, stand with us. And the Caribbean immigrants are like, I don't understand. Like, how is this a collective issue? What do you mean? How do you know this was based on race? And then African Americans saying, okay, obviously you're not with us. So then there is this othering that happens there. And I had found that the Caribbean immigrants who came into college had a lot of those experiences. And the ones who went to schools large enough to have a large Caribbean population found their ways into those spaces. Those who came in a little bit older tended to move into communities that already had a large Caribbean enclave. So they came into places where they had grocery stores with the foods that they were looking for. They had connections who would help them find jobs. And there was less direct experiences of othering or difference from African Americans in those spaces because they came directly into a Caribbean enclave. And the experiences they have with African Americans as a result of that, they felt were more brotherly or more fraternal. They felt welcome. They felt supported. When they started a new job, they looked for the Black person, and that Black person, no matter where they were from, helped them. We're like, oh, if you do this and this, you can get advanced, right? Or I'll connect you with this person and they'll help you get this job. So there was an immediate connection of, oh, this person's here to help me. The other Black people in this country are here to support me. And that really led to a more integrated identity of there's a Black togetherness in this state. And I can see myself having a shared plight with Black people, with African Americans, because those individuals also had multiple experiences of racism directly from white people, from being called the N-word to not being given opportunities, to not being given home loans to live in certain areas. Those individuals felt like they didn't have a choice but to be aligned with African Americans and a greater Black identity because their ethnicity was just washed away. Like they could not speak themselves or dress themselves out of that identity group. So they didn't. But those who had really negative experiences with African Americans felt othered, felt different. They talked about being mocked for their accents, given nicknames that they found really offensive. So had one participant from, forget what country, but they weren't Jamaican, but because their accent was from a country that was like British colonized, they were sort of called Jamaican, and then they were like called like coconut and all sorts of other things because they were just repeatedly mocked for their difference. And when they brought food to school, they were told that their food smelled weird. And all of that really led to this idea of, okay, these people don't want me. These people don't accept me. I'm not a part of them. And even if those experiences changed over time, that original harm really stuck around. And I think the other layer to all of these experiences that led to these, 4 separate identifications was the impressions that these Black Caribbean immigrants had of African Americans prior to coming to the States. So for some of them, they were told, okay, look for other Black people. They will support you. There is a Black community, look to connect with them. Look how Black people are successful. And this was with some of the older participants as well. And they cited like famous Black athletes who just did amazing things. One talked about growing up watching Muhammad Ali fight and was like, yes, like these are the people I need to be around. This is where I will find success in a home in America. And others talked about their parents being very explicit to separate themselves from African Americans, saying that this is a group that has not found success in America, that has not been able to overcome the challenges and oppression and slavery of their past. And therefore, you must separate yourself if you are to be successful. And to some extent had believed the racist ideas that America as a whole really exported to the rest of the world about Black people. And I found that those two different belief systems coming into the States likely colored how they understood their interactions with African Americans. So if they came in thinking African American other, I'm not supposed to be a part of them, don't connect with them, this is a group that is unsuccessful. When they had a negative interaction, it confirmed this belief system, which led them to further separate. But when they came in thinking, this is a group that is really meant to connect with me, that has been very successful, has really overcome the barriers ahead of them, that is producing these amazing individuals who are succeeding in America despite the obstacles, even when they had some negative experiences, they saw those as isolated incidences and did not choose to see it as a rejection from the African American ethnic group as a whole, and still were looking for a way to find a home in a greater Black identity. And the other part I didn't mention is my work is primarily focused on Black Caribbean immigrants' experiences with African Americans specifically, because we know what happens when Black folks from wherever they're from experience racism, right? There's often a separation that occurs or an internalization that these things are true. But when Black people move to America, they don't become American, they become Black American. Like you always get a qualifier. You're a Black American, you're African American, you're a Haitian American. You don't get to just be American. Even if you really, really want to, someone will put a qualifier on you. And that means that you also end up in communities that are often more Black, right? People will direct you toward Black people, right? You're new to this country, they'll say, join the Black Student Union. And you get there and you're like, I don't know anything about this group of people. Right? You're like, this actually isn't my group. But that's why my work really looked at what were our experiences with African Americans, because this is where we're going to get our hair done, right? Like we look to another Black person and say, where can I get my hair done? Where can I get braids? Where can I get a shape up? Because these are the folks that are going to help us. Where can I find the foods that I'm looking for, the seasonings I'm interested in? And each and every one of these experiences built up over time until at the point in which I interviewed these participants, they saw themselves as either separated, so ethnic identity identification only, or assimilated. They say, I'm African American, I am Black first and foremost and always, or they came up with an integrated identity. I am of my country of origin and I am Black, and I have adopted some values and practices of African American culture, and all of these are important to me, and all of these have contributed to who I am.
That was excellent. So very educational. One of the things that I want to highlight that I thought was so powerful from what you shared is that we have to really be careful as Black people, because America does export racist ideas, and we may be consuming them. These are racist ideas about African Americans, even before we come to the United States. And unfortunately, like you said, it may color our interactions. It may lead to unnecessary negative feelings towards African Americans, as well as missed opportunities for crucial relationships. Missed opportunities to really learn the history and the culture that's so rich here in the United States. So I thank you for saying that, because we often don't realize how much we internalize racism that's being fed to us. Yes. Is there anything else about the work that you wanted to share?
I really want to highlight that Black people are not a monolithic group, because I have found that there's often a discussion of Black America. What do Black people want? What are Black foods? How do you celebrate Black History Month? And there's this idea that we're all one people. And over time, we've really become many people. right? There are those who came here forcefully, 400 plus years ago. And there are those who came here, 100 years ago, those who came here 20 years ago, those who came here 5 minutes ago. But either way, we're all contributing to the greater Black America, right? So when you're speaking to someone who appears to be Black, who has identified themselves as Black in one way or another, feel free to ask where they're from. Like, where are they from in the States? If they have another ethnicity that is important to them, because they can say they're African American, but where in the United States, right? African American folks in the South and the North are different people, right? Those in the West Coast, they're all different people. Each subgroup has their own languages, customs, ways of being. And I think that we erase the richness of our ethnicity when we're collapsed into just one racial group. And I think when there's more room for us to be our full selves, there is benefit to all of us versus this collapsing into, you are all one people. You all eat this one thing. You all believe this one thing. There isn't room for richness and exploration when we're not allowed to be all parts of ourselves.
I just want to echo that part, and I'm going to ask you to elaborate, because sometimes we forget that there is, in fact, benefit to all of us. When you say that, what do you mean that there's benefit to all of us?
There's benefit to all of us when we are able to be our full selves, because we're able to exist outside of the boxes that racism has created for us, all right? There are these tropes and these ideas about what it means to be Black. And when we feel like we have to perform in those boxes and look a certain way and act a certain way and believe certain things and do certain things, it really limits the joys that we can have in the world, and what is available for us. It limits exploration is what it really does. I had a conversation with a friend once about either hiking or yoga or something else. And it was like, oh, these are things like white people do. And I was like, first of all, yoga is not, but like hiking, being outdoors, like white people don't own mountains. Like they don't own outsideness. They don't own practices that have been colonized from other groups. Like they don't own tea. Like they don't own these things. But if being Black allows us to be many things, we can be outside, we can camp. Like I had a friend who said she was an alternative Black girl because she liked camping. And I'm like, the idea that has to be considered alternative confirms the belief system that there is one type of Black girl. All right. And how limiting must that be for everyone else if they don't feel like they want to be alternative? Maybe you're just you. Right. And if we allow ourselves to be all of our richness, which starts with ethnicity and moves on out, then the joys that are available to us are endless. I personally believe.
Yes, celebration of Black diversity and all of Black beauty.
Yes.
We thank you for your work and for your insights. Let's talk about the impact of on the work of mental health practitioners when we're considering that Black people are not a monolith the next time we speak.